Everybody in California looks like a clown. You'd never even get noticed that way.
Hello and welcome to another bad movie review. This time we are looking at Bikini Car Wash Company. This is a 1992 film, runs about 84 minutes. It is directed by Ed Hansen, written by Ed Hansen and George Buck Flower. Now the premise is pretty straightforward. This is a hyper simplistic movie because this is basically a jiggle flick, as we used to call them. It's the type of thing that back in the 90s you would have seen on Cinemax late night on Friday during Cinemax After Dark, or various other assorted ways. It's not exactly a softcore film, but it's pretty close. So immediately we start off with scantily clad ladies within the first 5 minutes on the beach, and they're zooming in on thongs and various assorted body parts on young ladies. You do get some plot points right out the gate within the first 3 minutes. So that should tell you all you need to know about this kind of movie, because it's not only a B movie, it's a B movie that knows its audience. We do have some very, very dated computer graphics for the opening credits before moving on to the plot. Now we start off with a guy named Jack McGowan who is trying to get directions to his uncle's car wash. He's obviously kind of nerdy and he's from Iowa, so he's kind of a stereotypical fish out of water dork that you saw a lot in these kind of like low budget films of that era where anything nerdy was considered silly and laughable. So he is a college student, but he had to come to California to try and take over his uncle's business because his uncle has very bad allergies and has to go in for treatment. So the uncle needs somebody to run his car wash, the Sunshine Car Wash. He does run into some helpful locals. Well, helpful in the sense that they have an ulterior motive because they were trying to raise money for a trip, but unfortunately they invested heavily in edible underwear and left it out where it would all melt in the sun. So now they have to come up with some money to go on vacation. And their ringleader, Melissa Reese, she has a very clever idea once she figures out what Jack is doing. She does scam him out of $5 pretty quickly because she's really pretty and he is easily enthralled. So he does make it to his Uncle Elmer's, who is very annoyed, and Uncle Elmer introduces him to his two car wash employees who are very minor players in this. They're barely in the film. Now Melissa does invite Jack out to the beach, but she again, it has an ulterior motive. He thinks it's because she's interested, but she has something else going on. And of course her motive is to get money for her trip. So this all works together because Jack needs to get more money to keep his uncle's car wash going because his uncle needs special treatment and his insurance won't cover it, so they need to increase profits at the car wash in order for that to happen. So this is Melissa's perfect opportunity to explain that her and her friends can help bring about a lot of profit, and that would get her the money she needs and Uncle Elmer the money he needs. So she has a contract conveniently there when she's flirting heavily with Jack, which he of course signs immediately on her bare plot points. I would leave you with this advice: never trust a topless woman who wants you to sign a contract, because that contract is probably rigged in her favor. Well, Jack did sign the contract, so I guess that's his own fault. But the ladies do show up at the car wash to help out, and then we have a pointless exercise montage where they're doing calisthenics and doing some cardio. Totally unnecessary scene, but I didn't have a problem with it. Now, Melissa does keep flirting with Jack, but it's pretty obvious that over the course of the film, she is starting to really like him, and it's more than just a job thing for her. So there is that. There is a scene where the ladies have a sort of sauna break where they start pouring water over each other in bikinis and then taking their tops off. I don't really know what the reasoning for the film was, but it's very artistically and tastefully shot. So I can't really complain. It's very artistic. So the car wash business obviously improves vastly because there's a bikini clad woman out front and getting everybody to come to the car wash. But now the car wash is also selling sex toys and and I guess some pornos. It does look like they have a couple gas pumps too, which is never really addressed, but I think they just had an abandoned gas station to work with. Now, trouble does arise a little ways into the movie. We're about 30 minutes in at this point when Donovan Drake, assistant district attorney, shows up with a police sergeant. He wants to close the place down for various violations, even accuses them of being a brothel. But Melissa has a lawyer friend, the one that drafted that contract that she tricked Jack into signing, and that's Miss Canova. So their lawyer friend shows up to help out, and she's managed to delay things a little bit, but the ADA is going to get the DA and a judge involved, so they're supposed to cut it out with the naked shenanigans, but they clearly don't do that. Then a girl named Amy, who works at the car wash, played by Rikki Brando, she meets with the ADA, and she wants to apologize for the way he was treated by the locals, who threw a bunch of stuff at him for reasons that happen in movies, and she wants to apologize because she's a political science major who wants to be a lawyer, and they go for a barefoot walk on the beach, and I guess that is supposed to help with something. I don't know why that scene's in there. It doesn't really change much. Then we get this sort of weird music video scene where a bunch of girls are dancing and getting topless in the automatic car wash, and that scene really had no purpose whatsoever, but again, it was very artistically done, and it did look like a music video, so you get some rock and roll music throughout the film. Judge Hawthorne then stops by, which freaks everybody out. Of course, throughout the film, there is this ongoing joke with a flasher who's supposedly flashing his junk at everybody. There's at least one scene where you could tell he's wearing like underwear or shorts, but this pantyhose covered flasher is running around loose, and we finally do get some resolution to that. But when the judge shows up, him and his special lady are there, and she accidentally gets her clothes sucked off by one of the air hose machines that had been malfunctioning in a wild happenstance that can only happen in films like this. And the judge is furious, and he orders the place shut down immediately. The DA shows up with the ADA and get their orders, but that's when we learn the true identity of the flasher, and then the chase is on because the flasher manages to escape apprehension right away. So we've got this sort of wacky chase scene, and some local strippers that used to hang out at the car wash to do their changing managed to capture the flasher, who apparently has some sort of issue with naked women, which is why he's been flashing, because he can't handle women in bikinis either. So the middle-aged strippers torment him by doing erotic dances while he's handcuffed to a chair. Oh, the horror. Melissa does eventually come clean about her ulterior motive and why they're raising money, but Jack doesn't really care, and then they bang, as Frank from It's Always Sunny would say. So this movie has a very razor-thin plot that sometimes makes sense, sometimes it doesn't. One of the main flaws of this film is the wacky cartoon sound effects they put in whenever people are running and the flasher shows up. You get these goofy sound effects. Otherwise, it is basically a skin flick. It's not quite softcore because there's only a handful of sex scenes. They're very quick. Because they're not very long, you don't really get a good sense of what's going on because there's just not enough time involved. But there are a total of about 5 sex scenes. Like I said, they're very, very brief. There are an amazing 34 plot points in here, some of which are of course redundant, probably about half, but I think every woman in this film is topless at least once, including their lawyer, weirdly. You do get 4 taillights and 1 lady garden. For the ladies, there is something here as well because there are 2 male taillights, and there are throughout the film scattered scenes of guys in Speedos because the girls are hanging out with 2 guys. So these surfer bros do run around in their underwear for the majority of the film. Overall, it's not a bad movie. It's a B movie to be sure, but it's not the worst of these kind of skin flicks that are out there, especially because it's not particularly overly erotic. It's just a lot of titillation for the sake of titillation. There's really not a lot here that the average hardcore pervert's really going to look for. And since this predates the internet, this was the way a lot of newly 18-year-olds would get to see body parts. And there are quite a variety of types in this one as well, so there's a little something for everybody. Joe Dusic played Jack. This is apparently his only film. He's not even in the sequel for some reason, which I'm sure there's a story there, but unfortunately I don't think we'll ever know why this is his only film. There are quite quite a lot of B-movie actors in here as well, including Suzanne Brown, who had bit parts in lots of movies, and Secret Games 2, The Escort. She's in both of the Bikini Car Wash Company movies, Last Boy Scout, Test Tube Teens from the year 2000. Some really fun B-movie stuff. The guy that played Uncle Elmer, Patrick Wright, had a part in Cannonball, The Lincoln Conspiracy, Track of the Moon Beast. He played a prison guard at Maniac Cop, and many, many other recognizable bit parts in TV shows and movies over the years. So he's actually got quite a long filmography. Also recognizable is John Goff, who plays the DA, and people that have watched the reviews so far may recognize him from Drive-In Massacre. He also had a part in The Fog and They Live, which in They Live was just a bit part, but still pretty impressive. There are a few other people that are recognizable that you will notice from other B movies, but the standout performance here was really by Kristi Ducati. She had all the makings of a scream queen, and I don't know why her career was not more successful. She only was in 9 things, and it was like Intimate Obsession, a bit part on Married with Children, and a movie called Sorceress were her main ones. But I think she could have been a really good B-movie actress in horror films, and it's a real shame too, because she would have made a good B-movie scream queen. So all in all, if you like jiggle flicks or want a little flashback to the 90s, this is probably for you. It's lighthearted popcorn fun. It's silly. It's over the top. The silly sound effects and that are reminiscent of a Power Rangers episode are a little annoying at times, but overall, it's really not a threatening thing. It's just a raunchy comedy, and it's worth a watch if you remember those kind of films, or you're looking to see what life was like before the internet and all its degeneracy. So by today's standards, this is really, really tame, but really not threatening. It's just a bunch of topless people most of the time. The Lady Garden shots are really quick. The sex scenes are really brief and really poorly shot, so you're not seeing too much in the way of actual sex type scenes. It really is very bizarre how disappointing those were. But the amount of toplessness is pretty staggering. And like I said, about half of those are repeat offenders, so you're really only seeing about 15 sets from what I could tell. So this is definitely not going to be for everyone, and it's not your typical B-movie fare. It does have a certain audience, which are the raunchy comedy people and the people that like more softcore type material, and this is more entry level for that type of film. So the jokes are pretty dated, but the acting's not too bad, and it's not the worst thing I've ever seen. Like I said, it was kind of fun, brainless viewing for an hour and 21 minutes. But that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. If you enjoyed the episode, please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future reviews. If you'd like to help the channel out in other ways, links are in the description to various support methods. And as always, we hope to see you on the next one.